WGSN-DB Going Solo Network welcomes you to award-nominated relationship internet radio talk show, Going Solo with Cece. Host Cece Schatz is a speaker, author, blogger, and the leading transitional divorce and dating coach with My Friends Connect and Going Solo Next Step. Now, together, let's join Cece.
Well, hello there. This is Cece with Going Solo, and you're listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And it is so great to have you listeners back with us here. And we are going to move right forward into our subject. And our subject tonight is really getting through divorce in a different fashion. We always look at divorce as hire an attorney, going to battle, we're going to make the other party pay. But with our guest tonight, she's going to enlighten us on something that's happening in the now and something that might very well be beneficial to you if you are looking at, unfortunately, going through a divorce. But we're going to find out a little bit more about her, what makes her tick, what got her into doing what she's doing, and how she is changing lives today and people today, encouraging them to really be who they are and move forward after divorce. So I think it's really great. So we have Sabra Sasson with us today, and she is from New York City. And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Cece. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's wonderful having you. You are a best-selling author and experienced mediator with divorce, custody, family. You do prenups, attorneys. You do a lot of different things. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show today is because I like your concept of bringing people together to be able to move through the divorce process in a way that's going to be better for the family. When we talked earlier about our conversation, we talked a lot about being able to keep together the family unit, even though our marriage is splitting up. We're able to do that. And so what got you into doing what you're doing now?
Absolutely. What got me into it actually was my own divorce over 10 years ago, which was not a great experience. It was very combative. And after it was over, I had time to reflect upon what I had gone through. The whole reason why I became a lawyer was to help people. And I started to realize maybe there's some other better way. And actually, my mother had come across an article in the paper about a mediation training. And she gave it to me because she remembered my attorneys had attempted to do a mediation between myself and my then husband, which was unsuccessful. So because of that, I was somewhat interested and curious about it. And I went and explored that and learned that I was pretty good at it. And so I pursued my studies and learning and training in that area. And I started to use some of the techniques in some of the legal work I was doing, even though it wasn't yet family law. And slowly over time, I started pursuing some family law work and doing the work as a mediator, and I absolutely love it. And it was exactly what I was looking to do, which is to help people in times of stress, in times when they're at their lowest point in their lifetime and they feel like they have no place to turn. And this kind of opens the door a little bit, creates some possibility for some control in a time in their life when they feel out of control.
That's wonderful, because it truly is, how you look at things after the divorce, I think that really changes your life. So if you're not such in the muck of it and your emotions aren't totally trampled all over as you're moving through the divorce, it really does, when you get to the other side, it really does open your world to new opportunities, to new things. And so I like your approach to it. I like being able to let the audience know, let the listeners know that there's tools and there's other means out there for them as they're traveling through this difficult time in their lives. Because sometimes by just taking the smallest control back as we're moving through something that we feel is spinning out of control, when we take a little bit of that back, it really gains, I think, a lot of our self-respect. There's just so many different aspects to it that makes you feel like you are in the driver's seat of your life versus just hanging on for dear life. So I really like the idea of mediation. And so let's tell the audience a little bit the difference between going to an attorney, what that type of aspect, and doing a mediation. What is the difference? How would it benefit someone? Would it save them money? Is it going to be an additional cost? How does that work?
Absolutely. Well, essentially, you're asking me what is the difference if they were to lawyer up, so to speak, and litigate and go to court versus doing a mediated divorce. And there's different benefits and negatives in each choice, but the idea is that there is a choice. People have a choice in how to get divorced. And so what's great about it is that the people who are involved in their relationship that's ending, in my opinion anyway, they know what's best for them. There are certain situations, for instance, if there are orders of protection or there's been some form of violence between the parties, mediation would not be an appropriate forum for that couple. In my experience, for couples where the relationship has just run its course or it's fallen apart or they just realize this just isn't working for them and they need to go their separate ways, choosing mediation is a great way to go about it because the same issues that need to be addressed and decided will be decided whichever forum they choose. So they can go to court and they can go litigate. And as we all know, it's quite expensive because every court appearance can be several hours and the lawyers are charging an hourly fee for each of those court appearances. And if people don't comply with the requests and they're making motions, which could be several $1,000s more, and then decisions aren't made so quickly, it can take months for a decision to be made by a judge before the case even takes a few steps forward. In mediation, however, it's very much controlled by I call them participants. So the two participants are participating in the process. They have a say in how frequently the meetings are going to be and what subject matter they want to discuss in each meeting or each session. And depending upon the complexity of their situation in terms of their finances, in terms of whether there are children involved, what types of property or assets they may have, that really controls or kind of directs approximately how many sessions or meetings people might need in order to make decisions so that their assets can be distributed between them. If there's children, visitation schedules, custody, child support, all the issues that need to be resolved, they work on it together. It's kind of like a puzzle, you know, where you just kind of throw all your stuff on the table and you figure out this goes here, this goes there, and you're sorting through it, kind of like putting together a big 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. And so when you're working on it together as a team, it's a little, and I'm not going to say that it's fun, but it's a little bit more have a say in the process. Like you put together this section, you put together another section. But when you lawyer up and go to court, you're really going to battle with each other. You have your own positions. You're arguing on paper. Maybe your lawyers get to speak to the judge, and the judge has their own opinion and will influence which way or the other that decisions might be made. And sometimes it might be for your favor, and sometimes it won't. You really don't know what you're going to get when you go into court because you don't know what judge will be assigned to your case. And there's just so many unknowns when you go into court. And what I like about mediation is there's a lot of emotional stuff that goes on when you're going through a divorce. There's a lot to wrap one's head around. It's not just the ending of your relationship. It's also creating a new relationship. It's also starting a new life as a single person. And if you're a parent, redefining what your relationship with your children look like. And those are really big, scary things to change, aside from the financial hit that you're going to feel. So when you do it together as a team and kind of team up one last time, so to speak, with your spouse to get through it, the two of you that made a decision to get together and start a life together and build a life together, kind of doing the responsible thing is getting together this final time to ride through this wave so that they both come out okay at the end. And so as a mediator, that's what I'm helping couples do. I'm helping them navigate those rough seas, so to speak, so they both can come out with their feet on the ground.
Well, it seems to me that this seems to be a healthier way of doing it, even though as you're moving through it, as you said, there's still a lot of emotional aspects. There's still going to be some hurt there, maybe even some anger as you move through it, but you can kind of sort it out, can't you? You can do it in segments. It doesn't have to be overnight. Do you take it and break it down into different segments and then you kind of deal with it during certain times? I mean, how long does this process take? Can it take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, every family is different and every family matters differently. Some of them may decide on things before they even come in to meet with me, but let's assume we're talking about a couple who hasn't decided on anything other than that their relationship is ending. So if they're a couple and they have young children and maybe they have a piece of property and some bank accounts or retirement accounts, again, depending upon how cooperative they are in working with each other, they're looking at least 3 to 5 mediation sessions. And at least with me, my mediation sessions are 2 hours at a time. So you're looking at about 10 hours. Versus if they were to litigate these same issues, they could be, if it becomes a little bit contentious, just getting through discovery, not even getting to a trial, you may be looking at anywhere to 40 to 60 hours of attorney time. And you didn't even get to try the case before a judge yet. This is just in gathering documents and regular motion practice. So you can already see there the difference in cost and time in getting this done. The other point I want to make also is that the participants have more control in how frequently they can meet and get it done. So when you go to court, you're on the court schedule. So the court schedule is 9 o'clock in the morning till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. But a mediator is typically available during whatever their office hours are, and many mediators meet with their clients after hours, after 5 p.m., after 6 p.m., so that people don't have to take off all that time and hours from work. And so it's a little bit more convenient. It's, again, in their control. They can meet every single week. They can meet every other week. They can meet once a month. Again, whatever is at the comfort of the parties involved. As opposed to court, it's whenever the court says. The court may say, look, you're here today, but then next time the court's available for court appearance might not be for another month or 2.
I understand that. That's what happened to me. So I know it's for a fact that does happen. And then you're on this keel where you're ready and you're mentally ready to handle it. You're ready to move forward. And then all of a sudden, then it's like, oh, well, we didn't finish it all today. So now we have to wait a whole another month or 2 months to come back to it. And meanwhile, your life is in limbo. So it really is crazy. But I love the idea that you can work as a family on figuring out what you want to do with your parental agreement. So if you have children, I love the idea that you actually work together to try to determine what is best for the kids and how to handle situations with the kids and putting your agreement together. I just think that sets the pace or sets the footing to be able to move forward after divorce versus being an argument. Well, he wants this, she wants that, and you're fighting, you're tugging back and forth. I love the idea of being able to use a mediator to work those kind of situations out, because I really do feel at the end of the day, parents really do want what's best for their kids. So when you take that element and you separate it from the actual divorce, it makes a huge difference to be able to tackle those type of subjects. So I really do like that. Now, let me ask you, if you went into mediation, do you have to just give up your attorney completely?
No, not at all. Actually, in the mediations that I do, I often encourage the participants to at least be in touch with an attorney throughout the process, because as a mediator, I'm a neutral party. I'm a facilitator of the conversation. I'm not taking sides. And while I may share with them or educate the parties about the law regarding certain statutory requirements or things that need to be followed or what certain terms might mean, I'm not doing so in a way where I'm advocating for one side or the other. So it's always a good idea to have somebody that I refer to as a consulting attorney, someone that you have, on retainer on the side that you can call on, kind of like your lifeline. Hey, this issue came up. This is what we discussed. What's your opinion on that? And then you bring that information into the meeting or into the next time we're together, so that we can talk about it. Like, my lawyer said this, and now I'm thinking, I might want to request this or that. What do you think? And we'll play around with that and figure out how that might work with whatever the conversation has been and whatever proposals for possible resolutions have been discussed. So it's always a good idea to have someone, and especially, and a lot of people choose to, and a lot of people choose not to. It's really a personal decision. But at the end, if it's a successful mediation, there should be a document that's signed, either a memorandum of understanding or an actual stipulation of settlement, at least under New York terms. I don't know what the other states might require, but in New York, those are the documents that we refer to. And in my opinion, those documents should definitely be reviewed by an attorney. Make sure that they're consistent with what your understanding is of what was discussed in mediation, and that you really are comfortable with the terms that you're signing, because once you sign that document, that will become your agreement, and it's going to follow you forward over the years, however long the obligations are for that's set forth in that document.
So once the document is signed, is there a way that you can make changes to that document as time goes on if something happens?
So depending upon what terms you're talking about, to be revised. And again, my comments are limited just to New York because I'm a New York attorney. For instance, if there's a change in circumstances, maybe someone needs to relocate, or they lost their job, or they got a major increase in their salary, or maybe the spouse now has employment. So those may be opportunities and times to review spousal support or child support and to reconsider what those numbers are, and there may need a recalculation of them. There are certain terms that may not be changed, and again, it really depends upon what's written in your agreements and what was agreed to, because sometimes things that may be revisable in the future for some agreements, you may have negotiated to say, you know what, it's going to be this number for this period of time, and we're both agreeing not to change it. So sometimes the parties may negotiate as part of their terms that they're not going to look back on this and change things in the future. So every agreement is different and unique. And again, another reason to have it reviewed by your own attorney. It only will take them a couple of hours to look it over, give you some legal advice, and point out some things to you so you can really understand what you're signing.
I think that's an excellent idea. And as you said, you're in New York, so each state's going to have their own laws. You do want to speak to an attorney that can represent you legally to make sure that you are doing everything that's appropriate to the laws there in your particular state and counties. Absolutely. Now, tell me a little bit about the book that you've written. I know that you're a best-selling author. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah, it's really exciting. I had started to write my own book to talk about the mediation process, and then I heard about this other person who was putting together a compilation book called Success from the Heart. And that title really drew me to that project because of the work that I do. It really is from my heart that I'm doing this mediation work, and so I really wanted to share my story and what happened for me and why I'm doing the work that I do. My chapter in that book is called Dream a Different Dream, and so I share in that book my story of my marriage, my heartbreaking divorce, the horrible thing that my husband at one point had said to me in court. He had told me and my lawyers that he would do everything in his power to drag out this case to take away all my baby-making years. That was a major turning point for me. When he did make that comment, it got me really tough. Right then and there, I was not going to be quote-unquote nice, and I knew I needed to get this finished and ended as quickly as possible and just move on with my life. And after that, it really inspired me to help other people, other families who, he and I didn't have children and we didn't have any assets, and it was a very contentious divorce, and it didn't need to be. And so it really got me thinking about other families who are married for many years, they have children, they have assets, and if mine was so painful, I mean, I can't even complain, because what other people are going through is a lot more worse than what I went through. And if I could find some way to help people get through this horrific time in their life in a way that's less contentious and in a way where they have more control in the outcome, that's what I wanted to do. And so every couple that I meet with, one of the first things I start out with is I ask them if they can imagine themselves in the future already divorced, already living their lives. It's a year after the divorce is over with. Imagine themselves in a place that makes them really, really happy. If they can just envision that and then really feel that, and then start tracing back the steps, coming backwards into the moment today, then they've created the roadmap for where they want to go. And so it's from that place that we start working together. I'm like, all right, well, we're here now, and this isn't feeling that great, but look where you're going to be in a year or 2 years from now. And so we start working from there, and it makes it more real, and people get more passionate about participating in the process and really trying to figure out something so that each of them can achieve their dreams. Each of them can live the life that they want. And it's a matter of figuring out how they both can have what they want. And it's hard to imagine that for a lot of people, because a lot of them come into this, they hate each other. Two people who loved each other so much now have this feel that much not for each other anymore. And when I was studying my mediation training, if I could share this little story, when I was trained as a mediator, one of the stories that they share with us is the story of this orange. And it's about a mother and her 2 young kids, and they're fighting over this orange. So the mother thought she had the perfect solution. She would just cut the orange in half and give each of them a half, and that'd be the end of it. But the kids were still unhappy. And if she'd only asked them a few more questions to really find out what did they each want from this orange and why were they fighting so hard over it, it turns out that one of them loves to bake, and all they wanted was the rind from the orange, the zest from the orange, so they could put it in their cake to make a delicious cake. And the other one wanted to eat the orange. And if she'd taken those few moments, she would have found that out, and it would have had a completely different solution, but it would have been a solution that would have made both children very happy. So that's what I do when I work with people. Is I don't know what is the correct outcome for the couple that comes and meet with me, but when we ask questions and we get to explore where they're each coming from and what their desires are, and then come up with different proposals and ideas as to how it could possibly work, there's all kinds of creative solutions that they come up with. And it's really quite incredible to see these people work together and trying to think outside of the box and come up with ways that they can both have the things that they want.
Well, I think this is amazing, and you can definitely tell that, you do this because you love doing it. You do it out of your heart. You can go through such a most painful situation in your life and really come out feeling that it's going to be okay. And I think that is just tremendous, absolutely tremendous. And so many times I've heard from individuals over and over, and they'll say, well, I talked to my attorney, he just doesn't listen to me. He doesn't listen to what I'm saying. He doesn't get what I'm trying to say. And a lot of that is not because he's not listening, it's that he listens differently. And I think they listen because they're just caught up in the law and what needs to be done and the process and all of this. And like you said about the orange, they don't listen that really all you wanted was the zest of the orange, not the whole orange. And it's really a breath of fresh air to have you on the show and listen to how you look at things and how you're looking at things differently and how you're offering these tools to other people. And I think it's marvelous. Tell us a little bit about the prenup you do, the prenup work you do, because I thought that was a little bit fascinating, going from the mediation, divorce, and family custody and all this kind of thing, and now in doing that type of work. What got you into being a prenup attorney?
So I'm glad you asked that question. And I'm laughing because if you had known me back when I was in my 20s, I was the hugest proponent against prenups. I didn't believe in them at all. I didn't have one when I'd gotten married. I really believe that if you love somebody and you're in it forever, all of it, all of you. And I guess I may be a little jaded, or maybe just life. I now realize that I believe prenuptial agreements are really important, and for several different reasons. Kind of like an insurance policy on a car. You're not going to drive your car on the road and know that you're an amazing driver and you're never going to have a car accident, which you may never do. But that insurance makes you feel a little bit more protected. God forbid it happens, you have some protection. It's a little bit different with marriage because I think, in my opinion, there's so much Hollywood has glamorized marriage, and it looks so wonderful and it's so fun, and we get all caught up in the romance. And what people tend to forget is that yes, marriage is very romantic and you have all that romance and nobody's taking that away from anyone. But the reality is, legally, when you get married, a lot of rights and obligations appear just by virtue of getting married. And some of those benefits are medical benefits, get to file joint tax returns together, get loans together, a lot of different benefits as a married couple. But there's also a lot of obligations. And what some people don't realize is they never had those conversations with one another. What kind of credit score do you have? Do you have any school debt? Have you accumulated credit card debt? And all of these things can have a major impact upon the hopes and dreams that the two of you may have discussed during your courtship. Maybe you want to buy a house or a car or travel. And if one of you has a poor credit score or a lot of debt, you may be prevented from doing so. On the other hand, maybe things are really much, much better than you have imagined. And imagine if you pool your resources together, how powerful and how great and all these things that you can accomplish together. But you can't do that if you don't have these open and frank conversations with one another. And in America, my experience is most people don't talk about these important financial issues. I think people are afraid. They feel they're not entitled to know. Personal, yeah, it is personal, but so is getting married. So it's really important to have these discussions and conversations with each other before you tie the knot, before you walk down the aisle. Still, the primary reason that most marriages fail is over money. And I think that if people had a more comfortable way of talking about money with one another, discussing what type of money person they are. Are they a spender? Are they a saver? They like to buy gifts for everybody and feel like a hero. It's important to know what type of money person you are and who your partner is, so that when you need to spend money or borrow money during your marriage together, you'll be more clear on what kinds of decisions that the two of you need to or want to make together. And there's a fallacy in some people who come to me who are getting divorced. They think, oh, well, we've always kept all of our money separate, so everything's separate. So I just have whatever I have and the other person has what they have. And that may not be the reality in the jurisdiction where you live, that you could just say that whatever you have in your separate names are separate. So it's important to have those conversations. And again, it's maybe a little bit uncomfortable because you are talking about what if we might get divorced in the future. It kind of is an underlying tone of it. But the conversations that I have with my clients who want a prenup is more along the lines of, you know, what are the assets that you have? Great, look at this wonderful wealth that the two of you have accumulated. If there is debt, talking about how you can lower the debt over time, talking about what kind of plans they have for the future, if they're planning on buying a home in the future. So it's almost a form of estate planning that comes up in those conversations, and they can start planning now for what they want to do in the future after they're married to each other. Can I share a short story with you?
Yeah, I had a quick question too, is like, what about behavior? Can you address that in a prenup?
I get asked that question from time to time. And again, this is restricted just to New York. Behavior, you know, things about requests for taking out the garbage or for intimacy and things like that. You could put them into an agreement, but it's against public policy. So what I mean by that is the courts are not going to enforce those provisions. So some people may like to see them in an agreement because it's, again, kind of setting the stage for what their expectations of each other are. And they want to see a good faith that they're each agreeing to this. It's in black and white. It feels more comfortable for the two of them. But those aren't provisions that are necessarily going to be enforced if one person doesn't follow it and another person does.
Okay, that's fair enough. So share it with us, the story.
Yeah, so I had an interesting couple. I was representing the woman in this case. They were, the husbands, and the now husbands, had asked for the prenup. She was okay with that because he had significant assets and his income was substantial compared to hers. And they had talked about having children. And she was always of the opinion she had dreamed of being able to stay home with her kids until they were school age and then going back to work possibly. And when she discussed that with him, he had a completely different view of things, and he was completely against it. He's like, no, you're working. I want to be with a working woman, and I expect you to still be working. And so she and I talked together for a while. I guess you could say I kind of coached her a little bit, but essentially I helped her get more comfortable with having a conversation with him and expressing what she wanted and why it was important to her. And through those discussions, they negotiated that she could stay home with each child that they may have until the youngest turned 5 years old. So fast forward, they have that term in their prenup, and they got married, and now they have a little baby, and she's very happy. You know, she mostly stays home with their young son, who I think he's about 2 now. And she is doing some work, but she's doing it on her own terms because she wants to work, I think she does a lot of personal training. But for her, it was really important to not have to be obligated to go to work, especially since the difference in their income was so substantial. I mean, he brought home the lion's share and then some to the household, that for her, it just didn't make any sense for her to continue working on a full-time basis. So that's just one example of how, if they had not done a prenuptial agreement and had this issue not been discussed ahead of time, I often reflect and imagine that what if that provision wasn't in the prenup and she got pregnant, and now the discussion comes up and she says to him, I want to stay home. And now she's pregnant and she's having these discussions or arguments with him. How might that affect her pregnancy? How might that affect the baby? You know, these aren't things that you want to be discussing and fighting over during such an important time in your life. And so it's so great that the two of them were able to have those tough conversations before they got married, before they got pregnant, and be able to have a healthy child and on terms that the two of them can live with.
You know, it's so cool because what I'm hearing all throughout our whole conversation today is really clear communication, understanding what your needs are, expressing them, being able to lay it on the table, make a decision, make a commitment, an agreement to it, and move forward. And I think that is really great. If we're looking at it from the process of divorce through mediation, prenup, all of those things, we're in control of our lives again. And I think that's so important as we move forward through probably one of the most devastating and important decisions that we make throughout our life. I really appreciate all that you do, and I love the way, the new energy that you're showing everyone and that you're displaying, and you're saying, listen, look at life a little bit differently. Life is different. Let's take it by the hand and let's move forward in it. I think it's wonderful that you do that. Now, you have it on like CBS, Fox, NBC, ABC, and I'm just so privileged to have you here with us on WGSN-DB. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be on your program, and I'm thrilled to share this information because I think the more that people understand that they have choices, the better it is for them and their families. And maybe we can have happier families, whether they're staying together or deciding to end it and move on gracefully.
Absolutely. And again, it's that communication factor, which is so vital to us that we definitely need in today's world. Now, I know we have a huge listenership in New York area there, so I'd like to be able to share, and you probably can help someone in other areas too on different subjects. So why don't you share all of your contact information so they know how to get a hold of you?
Fantastic. So my phone number for the office is 646-472-7971. And you can find all my information on my website, which is www.sabra.com, which is S like Sam, A, B as in boy, R-A, L-A-W, group, GROUP.com. And you can check us out over there. We have videos, we have downloadable documents and resources, and just a lot of information to help people navigate whatever they're going through in their life at this time.
And also share your book again and how they can get a hold of your book.
Fantastic. Yes. So there's actually two books. First, the one that I spoke about before is Success from the Heart. It's a compilation, again, of stories of many different professionals who have taken whatever they've gone through in their life and turned it into something great. And that's where I wrote about my story, Dream a Different Dream. You can find that on Amazon.com. I also have a book that was published in December of 2015. It's also another compilation called Onward and Upward, a guide for getting through New York divorce and family law issues. And I wrote several chapters in there about real estate and divorce, about prenups and postnups, and also parenting plans. So those are really wonderful resources, again, for people going through divorce in New York. It answers a lot of different questions, and it's just a wonderful resource. That can also be found in Amazon.com as well.
Definitely a great book to read if you're looking to get divorced in the New York area, because there'd be a lot of really factual information there for them. So again, her phone number is 646-472-7971. So Sabra, thank you so much for being on the show, and be sure to call her if you have any questions at all about what you've heard today. I'm sure she'll be able to, if she can't help you, she'll direct you, and that would be great to be able to do that. So I want to thank you again for being on Going Solo, and I love all that you do, and you've got a really great heart, and thank you so much for really opening our eyes at different tools, different resources, different ways of looking at things today. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Cece. It was wonderful being here.
Going Solo with Cece on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. I hope you will get right back with us each and every year. Bye.
I'm getting stronger.